Welcome to Tapped In. My name is David Figueroa-Martinez of DFM Coaching, and today we're going to be discussing inside the coach's mind on competition day. If you've never competed, I'm hoping that this kind of sheds light on that process, but also that it sheds light on the process of what your own coach might be going through. And if you have never coached or you're new to coaching on the competition scene or in that this is probably going to be good for you too. I don't call myself a seasoned coach. I'm not someone that has a big competition scene or team or a set of competitors that compete all the time. I am going to label myself, and even though I hate the word, but it's what we call, most people like me, a hobbyist. We are people who have full-time jobs, who have families that we got to take care of. Our attention and time are spent on other things outside of jiu-jitsu, but we love and adore the sport and the art. So we sometimes compete. We sometimes have students who compete. So we dive into that as well. Again, I don't have this extensive knowledge of competition like maybe a Danaher or some of these other big names. I am more of a local coach who's helping other people who are quote unquote hobbyists. So from that mindset, that's where we're approaching this from. When I get to the competition, if you've never been, I have a episode on first competitions. If you want to catch that, I'll put that in the show notes. And it is a little bit of a mess if you've never competed before or you've never done organized sports before. Because when you get there, there's a lot of noise. There's certain smells that maybe you hadn't caught before because there's a lot of bodies and a lot of mats and different people and teams. And it's a different experience than what you're going to be used to at home or at even your in-house. There's going to be a lot of energy. You can feel the energy when you get in these places. There's going to be excitement. There's going to be nervousness, sadness, dejection, anger in some sense we'll go over in a minute. It's just a house of so much emotion and tension and everything in between. When you get there, it's going to feel like a lot. It just is. As a coach and as a practitioner or the competitor, you are both stepping into an environment, if you haven't done it much, that might feel a little daunting. If you have some experience in it, it'll feel like home a little bit. Like maybe you competed a few times, you're not used to it. It excites you, whether you're the competitor or the coach. There's something to that energy that's fun to be around. But it's a lot. Chances are you're going to have to get there early for weigh-ins. You're going to have to get there early to warm up. You never really know with some of these competitions if they're going to be running early, if they're going to be running on time, or even late. So you have to account for all of that. So you're going to get there, and you're going to have to be in a hurry up and wait mentality. And I got that from the military, where everything was a rush. Everything's moving frantically, and it feels frantic, and then you just got to wait for a while. And that's how I was brought up in the competition scene. Very few of the competitions that I did coming up as a white, blue belt, and purple were run on time. It was a lot of waiting. It was a lot of sitting around, reading, sitting around, getting in your own head and looking at all the competitors, and this guy's jacked and that guy's jacked and this guy's huge and this guy just, it's 4-stripe and I'm a 1-stripe. And so you can get in your head pretty easily. As a coach, you could also get in your head. These are two roles that are going into quote unquote battle. And they both play a really big part in how you're going to succeed or fail. It's not just on the athlete. The coach does a portion of this in preparing them before they get there. Then they have to prepare them during the lead up of once we're there. There's going to be times when they might call your name, but they're not quite ready. They're just checking to see if everyone's there. And your athlete can get really excited. You got to bring him down. There's going to be times when you're going to feel that nervousness as well with your athlete, because there's a pressure for you to explain things in a way that they can understand at that moment. And sometimes the moment is fleeting. It shows itself and it's gone. And you have to keep up with everything that's going on, and you have to understand everything that's going on with your athlete and the environment around them. It can be daunting especially the first time. When I get there, I'm generally I'm looking around, I'm looking at the energy levels, I'm looking at the other athletes. If we've been called up to a specific mat and we're just waiting to start the bracket, I'm looking at the other athletes, I'm watching their matches, I'm watching tells or tendencies, things that I should be worried about. I remember one time I was watching a match and I knew this guy was pretty good at takedowns. I can tell. And my athlete, it was his turn to come up and he had paired up with this gentleman. And I can't remember if the gentleman had fought before or if it was just the way he was approaching the fight that just gave me a certain vibe of like, okay, maybe we just want to pull. And when they slapped hands, the way the guy stood and came at my athlete, I knew he was a judoka. I knew he was going to start throwing people. And I'm yelling to my athlete, pull guard, get your grips and pull guard. I understand some people are going to be like, oh, that's cowering. That's you playing scared. No, it's being intelligent. Understanding that there's a difference between dropping to your butt and then scooting forward and getting efficient grips and then pulling guard. Two different things in my book. If I know that the athlete ahead of me or across from me or across from my athlete is high level anything standing, we're not going to play that game too much. We're going to play a slightly different game. We're going to try to negate that. And the way he was moving and he was moving his hips and his footwork and the way the grips he got, I knew he was going to throw this dude. And I had yelled, pull guard, pull guard, pull guard. And he was not listening to me. He felt like he just wanted to see if he can do something. Fair. The athletes are going to make decisions on their own that are going to be different than the coach. What we prefer is that they listen, but sometimes you just got to let athletes be athletes. And the gentleman got thrown. I knew he was going to get thrown. I knew that there was a disparity between the two skill sets and it was better just to negate it. But he decided that he wanted to go in and he got thrown. That's what I mean by, like, as a coach, you're eyeing everyone else. You're watching the matches, both to kind of calm yourself down and kind of get entertained by something, but also because you know that your athlete is probably going to fight one of these guys at some point, guys or girls. So you're just trying to see what positions are they really adept at, maybe which positions we want to negate, which positions we don't want to find ourselves in at all, ever, and which positions do they tend to shy away from. We want to know all that. We want to feel and kind of see what's going on there. So we push for it sometimes. And I watch and I might give my athlete a few pointers, specifically if they're a little bit more experienced. It might go into a bit more detail. If they are brand new, I may not tell them anything. I may not want to fill their head with a bunch of facts or concerns, especially if I have an athlete who is pretty confident. I don't want to shed any water on that flame. I want them to just play their game. And that's usually what I tell students. Play your game, have fun, be safe. So there's going to be times when I might see something and I'm not going to let them know. And they'll go out there and sometimes in some cases, it allows them just to play, which is really what I want them to do. And sometimes maybe I should have let them know. But it really depends on the athlete. And sometimes you can let someone know, hey, I don't want you to get caught in your close guard. And then they fight really hard to get out of that position or away from it. And then when they get caught in it, there's almost this letdown of, oh, my coach told me not to get here. He must have told me for a reason. And then they almost start doubting themselves harder than they should. Instead of like just figuring out how to get out of there, we're forced to feel like that emotion of, oh, I failed to get here. And then now I'm here for a reason and I'm playing from behind mentally and physically. So some people I just don't say anything to and I just watch them and I let them play. And other people I kind of like, hey, I need you to do this. And it really depends on the athlete. I'm also looking at coaches, like who's coaching who has a coach, whose coach is actually involved. I try to be as involved as possible, but there are moments where your athlete's going to be very specific and you just want to provide what you can and back off when you feel like, okay, this is going to be detrimental. Managing the nerves is a big thing for both the athlete and the coach. From a coach's experience, I've competed quite a bit at white, blue, and some purple, like I mentioned. I understand how nervous we can get. I get a little nervous going into the coaching. And I try to watch if they're too far in their head, then I'll start talking about some things. I might chat about what is going on in the match that's present. I might mention, hey, so you see how they did this and you're going to do this. And just to like keep them involved without getting too far into their head. And then there's some athletes I've had where they change when they're competing than when they're at the gym. And while I'm standing there, maybe a little nervous, they go a little, serial killer isn't quite the right word, but they go cold. They don't say a lot. They don't communicate a lot. And you could tell it's more of a focus than a nervousness. And then I let that, I had an athlete who was just strictly, like he's completely focused. I didn't bother him whatsoever. I didn't talk much to him. Between rounds, he was in a good space. But sometimes when you're nervous, your athlete's nervous, you're going to have to hide some of that as a coach. You're going to have to distract them. You're going to have to, maybe you are standing next to a barrier and there's other teammates around and they can also kind of chat with them. It's really important to understand the difference between being nervous and like almost petrified. If you let the nerves get to you too much, both as a coach and an athlete, you will not respond well. But if you understand that nervousness are a good thing, being a little nervous means that you're aware of what could happen and you're not overconfident. That's a good thing. That's not a bad place to be. My understanding as a coach is that I have to address my own nervousness, sometimes hide it, sometimes acknowledge it to myself, but also say to the athlete, hey, being nervous is okay. We're both a little nervous. We're going to be fine. Once you slap hands, you're just going to get to it. And you sometimes bestow some of your experiences on them, letting them know that every match that I've ever had, I've been nervous. I'm nervous coaching you right now because I also have to perform like you perform. And that exchange of similarities kind of helps them out, helps you out. And you both understand that the coach is not perfect. They're not going to understand everything and they're not going to know everything. And we're not that different. We're both going into quote unquote battle. And I say quote unquote because it's just a jiu-jitsu match. It's not war. But we're going into battle and we have similar concerns of each other's performances, and that's fine. It's perfectly fine. But finding a way to maintain that calmness and not stretch into like being petrified is going to be a skill that has to be developed by both people. Something that, like I touched upon, is you have to also, as a coach, understand when to talk and when not. There's going to be times when, like I said, that guy was ultra focused. I didn't say shit to him. There's going to be times when I have an athlete that's a little jumpy, and I'm going to, hey, just calm down, take deep breaths. We're going to be fine. Your game plan is to grab the grips, do this, pull guard or ankle pick or whatever it may have been. And when you get to the position you want, I want you to take a deep breath, make sure you have your frames in place, and start to work. Your game plan is solid. We're doing great things. We prepared. Everything else is just going to be what it is. And sometimes I tell them, hey, I tell them, we're not doing this for medals. We're doing this to see where your game is at and shore up certain deficits that we have and move accordingly. This is a skill building assessment and test. Nothing more than that. If you get this win, great. If you don't, no biggie. And sometimes that's super helpful to hear. And then there's some people who are really focused on winning and they seem to be in a good headspace, I don't say anything to. And then there's going to be times when you lose that match. Let's say the local tournament might be 2 out of 3 because there's only 2 of you, or they might have round robin, or they guarantee you 2 matches. I prefer those tournaments that guarantee you 2 matches because, especially if you're not someone who competes very often, your nerves are going to get you in the first match. And then you kind of make some adjustments and maybe you get a do-over, if you will. Those moments where your athlete has lost, they're going to be down on themselves. You're going to have to say something more often than not at some point. Sometimes in encouragement, sometimes it's, hey, we fell short in these 2 positions or this position. But what I loved was you were behind on points. You didn't give up. You pushed yourself. You started to make a fight. You put yourself back into the match. This is something we could build off. Sometimes your athlete may have done everything right and they just made one final mistake somewhere and they got submitted. I've had that. I've had athletes who they were winning the match, but maybe really short, and then they allowed for a sweep, but the sweep landed them in mount, and then now they lost the match. Like, these are things where you kind of step in and you encourage them. You let them know, hey, you were doing really good. Yes, we fell short in these areas, but you were doing fantastic. I want to see more of that. We're going to shore up this mistake that we made, and we're going to see how things go in this next bout. And then sometimes you're going to have moments where the referee may have made a mistake, and you state your case to the referee, but it is what it is. So then you got to tell your athlete, hey, it didn't go the way we wanted to go. Neither is life. And we're just going to accept what is. We'll see if we can do something about it later. But right now, I need you to stay focused in your emotions and what you need to do next. We lost the match. However we lost it does not matter. Your job now is to understand what we need to do next. And that sometimes helps. I've had students who get really down on themselves after a competition, and I don't offer any critiques. That's not the time. Those are moments that we can have later, either the follow-up in the following days or when I review their video footage and I send it back to them. Those are good points to review that. But sometimes in the moment, after a tough loss, all you do is encourage, but you do not give them the, hey, you should have done this, this, and this. It's not, with certain athletes, it's not the time. You're going to find an athlete that, hey, what could I have done better there? They'll ask you right off the bat. They're just built that way. There's nothing wrong with either version. It's just you as a coach have to understand when you need to speak and when not to, and what you need to say. You always need to have conversations with them that are positive. We can discuss fixes if you're ready emotionally. If you're not, we're not having that conversation at that moment. We're going to have the conversation of, I'm proud of what you did. I'm proud of how we process that. We'll discuss whatever later. Great job. There's also a aspect of like balancing your emotions and logic. It's sometimes if you've never competed before, you're going to get into a match and I can give you all the advice, technical advice that you'll need. Sometimes your emotions are going to get the better of you, and you're going to have to balance that need for that technical advice. And sometimes you're just going to have to be there as a coach emotionally, and they're going to go and they're going to have this first match, and maybe it did not go well at all. They were too scared. They were too nervous. They were too afraid. They didn't pull the trigger, and you're just going to have a conversation about that. And if there is a second match, one of the things that I will often tell them is, I'm not giving you any technical advice. What I want you to do, because nothing matters right now, if you go 0-2, I'm not mad at you. I'm not upset. I'm not disappointed. This is nothing on me. This is nothing on you. No one's going to remember this. What I want you to do is just play your game. And oftentimes I'll do better the second time because it's less about like the logical, technical aspect. And now it's more about managing the emotions that ride with you in these things. And you can make those decisions differently because now you have nothing to lose. It's just an interesting dynamic when you're competing and coaching that you'll often feel and see. And it's just odd to feel sometimes. There's times where you're just going to just let it ride. There's times when I go to a competition and I understand I have enough faith in the competitor that they don't actually need me. They just need someone there to kind of like to look to. And I don't say a whole lot in those scenes. They'll go out there and they'll have the matches they're supposed to have, and they do everything that they're supposed to do, and you don't have to say a whole lot. I should never have to say a ton. I shouldn't give you a paragraph dictation when you just need an underhook. I shouldn't give you a paragraph of dictation when the bottom person starting to mount some kind of a guard, and I just need you to hold. So how we speak, what we speak, all matters. And it is our job to be as calm as possible, understanding as possible, and not take any of this personally, because it's not a dictation. It's not an indictment of our coaching strategies. It's not an indictment on us or even the athlete. These are learning experiences both for you and them. With that being said, I have seen a really ugly side to competition at times. I've seen coaches who go into it thinking that it's about ego or the name of the gym. And if their athletes fail or none of them medal or none of them win any matches, that is an indictment on their coaching strategies and the gym. And sometimes maybe we can fix some things, yes. But this shouldn't be an ego-driven experience. This is really about the student understanding themselves enough to compete well, understanding themselves enough to trust you enough, understanding you enough. I've seen coaches scream at their athletes. I've seen coaches berate their athletes after a loss. I've seen coaches give like backhanded compliments. Oh, you did well, but you're lucky that there wasn't any, that the division wasn't bigger or something like that. And it doesn't make the athlete feel good or great. I've seen athletes crumble after the loss and they have to head back. They've shaken the hand of their opponent's coach and they have to head back to their own coach. And there's a sense of humiliation. That one breaks my heart. I never want my student or athlete to feel like they let me down. I personally don't care. It is not about me. It's not about what this win is going to do for me, or it does absolutely nothing for me as a coach. This is literally, in my opinion, a test to see where my student is. And sometimes I use the competition scene. I might sign someone up on purpose because they have a view of something, and I need them to see that the competition scene or the way you roll outside of your familiarity is going to be a little different. So I put them in a competition just so I can see them have to deal with the thing that I've been trying to get them to understand, but they wouldn't. I don't need to berate you. I don't need to make you feel bad. So I put them in a competition. Some things happen that I knew were going to happen, for example. And then when they walk off the mat towards me, it's a hug. It's a, I'm proud of you. Great job. And then later we discuss some of the things that may have gone on or gone wrong. I never want to yell at an athlete. I never want an athlete to feel like they didn't do me proud or that they should be embarrassed by their performance for me or themselves. Absolutely not. Again, these are just measuring sticks. These are tests. These are examples for us to see, okay, we can do X, Y, Z better. This is all that competitions is for most of us. If we're trying to make it a business or a profession, that's a different story. But in this scenario, I don't want any ugliness from my part or theirs about their performance or mine. I've watched some students compete without a coach. Their gym just didn't give a shit enough to send a coach. And sometimes I get it. Like, it's a small gym, coach was out of town. I just signed up for this. I knew I was going to do it by myself. Not a problem. But there are gyms out there that don't have a system in place where they put a cadre of instructors to go with their athletes to competitions. I know personally gyms that they only coach IBJJF or they only coach the pro circuit. They don't do any of the hobbyist stuff. It's beneath them. And it's ugly to me and demoralizing when an athlete steps out there and they have no one. I've coached athletes who didn't have a coach, and I didn't know anything about their game. I didn't know anything about how they performed or what their game was. Zero idea who this person was other than a familiar face that maybe I had seen around. Or someone brought them to me and said, hey, this person doesn't have a coach. And I step in. And the hope is that you can center them and you can calm them down. You can just send out a couple of curt, short instructions that they can get. But it's hard to coach that because you don't know where their strengths are. You don't know where your weaknesses are. So you might be coaching them into something that you would do, but it's not what they do. So coaching overall is one of the best experiences that you'll have. It's solely about your athlete. And when they win, there's this genuinely proud moment that you have, and they're super ecstatic and happy. And when you lose, you kind of have to tend to them and make them feel like, no, it's okay. It's okay. You have to pull them in a little bit and tend to that emotional letdown. But it's generally one of the funnest things. When I coach, I'm not a yeller. I've never been a yeller, so it's hard for me to get into that yelling. Like, I got to yell instructions. And by like the fourth match, my throat is usually raw and my voice is shit that night and the following couple of days because I don't yell much. So having to yell in that context is difficult, but it's something that I have to work on. I have to be louder sometimes. in being a coach, and you do have to assess your own performance and where could I have done a little bit better? Was I too late in my instructions? Was I not clear in my instructions? Did I allow my athlete to go without instruction because by the time they did something, I had already been a step behind? It's a lot. It's not an easy endeavor. It's not an easy episode, but I try to always remain calm. I try to be as emotional supportive as possible. When we get a call that doesn't go our way, I don't yell at the ref. I don't demean the ref. I don't demean the staff. I don't think that's a good example to the athlete. But those are all things that I've seen. I've seen coaches just berate refs. Like, I've seen parents berate refs. Just ugly. So if you're trying to get into the coaching aspect, or maybe you just did it and you want some feedback, I'm hoping this kind of helps. For those athletes who've never coached and they've kind of always wondered what's going through your coach's mind, I hope this also helps. Any questions, please hit me up, dfm.2099 on Instagram or Threads. You can shoot me a message or a DM. I generally try to help people. I have a free school community, DFM Coaching, BJJ, completely free. There's courses on there. There's an audio series, Q&A. I post regular videos and content. Again, I just want to see people get better, enjoy the sport that I have loved for the last 14 years, and it has developed me into a better person. Any questions, let me know. Until next time, thank you so much.